You're hanging out after hours with Matt Anderson, presented by Inside the Gamecocks.
Welcome into the Late Night Gamecock Show. I am your host, Matt Anderson, and joined, as always, by Alex Jones of thebigspur.com. How's it going tonight, Alex?
It's going pretty good. Another week. I'm not sure what to do with myself with no camps this week, but just another week. Here we go.
You know what I'm really glad about? I'm glad that neither of us work for Texas A&M right now after losing their baseball coach at this point in the offseason to a rival Texas. Schlossnagel, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. That's a rough 24 hours.
Yeah, I'm just glad that the Gamecocks have Paul Mainieri. If you missed it today, Alex Jones himself was on Inside the Gamecocks, and they had to get the cream of the crop out of the way first, and then Paul Mainieri came on Inside the Gamecocks, and it was a really, really good interview. It lasted about an hour, so if you missed it today, definitely go back and watch Alex's interview, and then also Paul Mainieri's. It was really interesting. He talked a lot about where the mindset is right now for the baseball team and the coaching staff and what they're trying to do going forward. But man, I gotta talk. Like, this is not on the show notes, Alex. Here, I didn't prep you for this, but golly, what do you do with your A&M right now?
Yeah, I mean, I said it a minute ago, just a rough 24 hours. I mean, I haven't seen any names float around recently, but I mean, you got to think a lot of the coaching market is kind of, already done, but, they can throw a lot of money at whoever they want to. So it's going to be interesting to see because whoever they get is going to just start another coaching search as well.
I mean, I'm literally thinking to myself, because, the Vitello stuff was out there about 4 weeks ago. I think we both heard that, and it was interesting. Like, why would this guy that's, the cream of the crop in college baseball right now, has Tennessee rolling, maybe going to win a national championship, even be entertaining this idea? But it in my mind, Alex, and I know this isn't a Texas Longhorn show, but it does impact the SEC, with Texas coming to the SEC in the next 6 days or so officially. This had to be done before the College World Series started. I just can't imagine that less than 24 hours after finishing runner-up. Wow.
Yeah, you would have to think that the wheels are already in motion with this one. I think it's, probably kind of funny that Texas, officially fired their coach the day of the national championship game with their arch rival in it. But, yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, it's been crazy for us lately. I mean, you've been doing these camps, it feels like all June. I've only done a handful of them with you, but it's got to feel good right now with the dead period in college football recruiting, all the camps done. Now it's just seeing when, players pop for the Gamecocks. And I think there will be some players that pop over the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe some sooner, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what has your last couple of days been like, Alex? You're not having to wake up and get to camp at 8 a.m., not tracking down who's going to be there.
Mainly recovering from those camps that you and I were both at all week last week. But, as I know we'll talk about it later on, but had the final official visit weekend, which has some good returns from some guys there, and has some big recruiting news even today to cover. So, yeah, things haven't really slowed down a whole lot.
No, not at all. I know that just a quick programming note before I go too far. The next 2 weeks, we are going to join the Inside the Gamecock show with a little bit of a hiatus. And the rationale there is it's 4th of July week, and then Alex and I are going to do some game planning on what we want to do going forward with this show. Show's not going anywhere. Don't get worried about that. But we're just going to take 2 weeks. Not a lot's going on right now. It really is the dog days of summer. So we will be back on, what would that be, July 16th. Tuesday, July 16th. This show will be back, and Inside the Gamecocks is going to have some cool things that happen during this 2-week hiatus. So make sure you're still locked in there and checking out what Phil and JC and JB have planned for you. It's going to be a lot of fun. And look, if something crazy pops, we might have to pull Phil away from his family trip up to DC and get him on to produce a show, but hopefully not. One of the big things that happened over the weekend that wasn't necessarily Gamecock football recruiting or baseball recruiting or basketball recruiting is there was a very well-attended NIL event at CB 19, CB 18, CB 18. down in 5 Points. Steve Tannehill's bar. They had over 70 people attend. They had over 20 Gamecock student athletes that were comprised of the football team, the baseball team, and the basketball team. I heard it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, you can only stay in Columbia a week and a half before your wife gets mad at you and tells you to come home. So I had to come back to Florence. I missed out on it. But Ja'Kai Moore did win the competition. And Alex, did you see the number of wings that Ja'Kai put down in 2 minutes?
Was it 20?
20 wings in 2 minutes to take the crown. I don't know if I could do that many. Actually, I know I couldn't. And they inspected it. Every wing had to be, meat to the bone, and Ja'Kai got it done. Alex, how many do you think you could eat in 2 minutes?
God, I don't even know. For sure not 20. And to the bone, not 20. I mean, that's crazy.
I think that I might be able to get down like 10, and all my family and friends would be embarrassed watching me do it, but I would at least give my best effort. So really good event. Again, South Carolina is behind a little bit in NIL and all three of those sports compared to the rest of the SEC, and then also nationally with some other teams. So really thankful that the guys at CB18 put that together for the Gamecocks and the fans. And I know some posters were signed. It was a pretty good event. We got to talk quickly. Tennessee did win the national championship. I think it makes 10 out of 15 College World Series is won by the SEC. And I know that all South Carolina fans are excited for South Carolina baseball to get back there. So if you listen to Paul Maneri today on Inside the Gamecocks, I think you'll feel pretty confident in the Gamecocks' chances when you have a guy that's won 1,500 games, coached in 2,300 games, and the plan that he has laid out and the coaching staff that he has on the baseball side of things is very, very impressive. We're going to talk about football in a bit, but I did want to do a quick baseball update. We always think about the transfer portal when it comes to men's basketball, which was absolutely wild. I think there were over 2,000 kids that entered the transfer portal this past year. Baseball is no different. The Gamecocks have lost outfielder Carson Horning, left-handed pitcher Jackson Phipps, left-handed pitcher Javiera Martin. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Right-handed pitcher Drake Quinn, utility player Tristan Salinas, right-handed pitcher Alston Williamson, and infielder Tyler Zadalis. None of these guys really played that much of a role this past season. There are going to be some names there that you recognize from, a couple years ago. Look, the transfer portal gives and it takes, and those are who the Gamecocks have lost right now. I don't know if any of those players have found new homes yet. Probably going to happen over the summer if they haven't already found new homes. But the Gamecocks are bringing in a couple of guys. Utility player Caden Gaskin. We talked about him a few weeks ago. Hit 403, 7 home runs, 59 RBIs, 41 stolen bases at Northwestern Florida State Junior College. Outfielder Nathan Hall, a 2-year guy at Clemson who hit 240 and 96 at bats, mostly last year, 2 years ago. 4 doubles, 1 home run, 15 RBIs, and stole 7 bases in 8 attempts. Right-handed pitcher Caleb Jones struck out 49 and walked 19 in 49 innings, giving up 56 hits. I think he's from Winthrop or Wofford, Alex. And then outfielder Dalton Mashore hit 338 with 17 doubles, 4 triples, and 13 home runs at St. Mary's. So I know that the coaching staff feels pretty good about the players that they brought in. They're still looking for somewhere in that 3 to 5 player range to bring in more players to South Carolina's team. And right now, I mean, we've talked about it a lot on this show, but I think that Ethan Petrie is the only player on South Carolina's roster coming back that's guaranteed a starting spot. So baseball is so far away, but it still feels so near and dear since we just finished it, Alex. What's your take on what the Gamecock baseball team is doing and just your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I think, we've kind of covered this, but, and through any coaching search, you're going to have some players leave in the program. But, I think they've kind of really done a nice job, and really Monty Lee did a nice job of retaining these guys through a coaching search and keeping these guys together for when Paul Maneri came. And, when you think about the guys they've brought in so far, Gaskin, the transfer, the JUCO transfer, I think he's maybe one of the more intriguing guys that they brought in just from what he did at JUCO at that level. So, I'm sure, obviously, as you mentioned, there's going to be a few more guys that they bring in, but it seems like they're doing a pretty nice job here so far.
Yeah, and I think that Monty and the pitching coach, what's his name, Alex? It's blanking on
Rooney,
Rooney. Yeah,
Terry Rooney.
Rooney. They've been out there recruiting their butts off. They've been to
Yeah.
California, the Cape. They're interviewing players, and Paul Maneri said today on the Inside the Gamecock show that they have some visits set up for next week. So while football period's in a dead period, college baseball is still rocking and rolling. Were you surprised at all by the way College World Series ended up, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much because Tennessee was just the best team all year long, and really Texas A&M was right up there with them. So, but it's kind of funny. You normally don't see maybe that one. Obviously, you don't. We have. It's been a long time since we've seen the one seed win the College World Series, but normally you see some type of team that was really off the radar kind of make a run through the World Series. But we didn't see that this year. But I think it was a really good College World Series overall. Just well played, good played baseball, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I think back to like that this kind of like opening games and all the one-run games, all the walk-off games, and I do think that while you didn't have that Cinderella and Omaha, you probably had 6, 7 of the best teams in the country all competing, and a lot of times it's like when you get hot. Was NC State one of the best teams in the country all season? I don't think so, but they got through and they got to Omaha, and it was an all SEC, all ACC College World Series. And as what normally happens when the SEC and ACC get together, the SEC found a way to get the job done yet again. So we'll see where the Gamecocks end up there next season. So a number of commitments for South Carolina football, Alex. Shed Surratt, we talked about him a little bit. We kind of felt like that one was coming. Cutter Woods happened pretty quickly. The commitment tonight, Tayshawn Alston. And then 2 special team guys, kicker Max Kelly, who I know you've spoken with, and long snapper, that's funny. Long snapper Kyle Farrow. Let's start with Shed and what you think the Gamecocks are getting there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who I think we're in a really good spot for a while with him, and I think with him, one of the big things that he discussed over the weekend on his official visit was just how close he was with Lonnie Teasley and the relationship he had built with him. And kind of an interesting thing about Surratt, you were there and at camp on Friday, he actually worked out, which is something for like 2025 guys who are well known. You don't see that often. So I think that was I thought that was really cool that he ended up coming to that camp and working out, and then eventually just stayed for the weekend for his official visit. But I think Colorado was probably another team that was right up there in this recruitment. But at the end of the day, Lonnie Teasley kind of keeps it rolling with these in-state guys, and just a really good looking offensive tackle prospect who, they've got some depth there, but he could be a name to watch here when he enrolls at Carolina.
Yeah, and ideally, when you talk about an offensive tackle or an offensive lineman in general, like it'd be great for them to redshirt. I mean, personally, I think that almost every offensive lineman and defensive lineman in a lot of ways, you really do benefit from that year in the weight room, like getting conditioned, all of that. So with Shed in the boat, Gamecocks, Lonnie Teasley just keeps it rolling. Offensive line recruiting. I don't know how many 4 and 5 stars we're up to over the past 3 recruiting cycles, but I know he's not done quite yet. The next one to talk about is Cutter Woods. That one seemed to happen pretty quickly. Alex, what are your thoughts on that recruitment, and what can Gamecock fans expect from Cutter when he puts on the garnet and black? Oh,
Yeah,
Alex,
I know. Yeah. He's one who, his recruitment for South Carolina obviously happened really quickly at that camp, and I'm forgetting the date that he was there. He really kind of tore up that camp, just led that team to that 7-on-7 title, was making throw after throw. And then over that weekend after he was there, he got the offer from South Carolina, and I thought a pretty good indication that South Carolina was getting real interest from him when he he promptly scheduled his official visit for this past weekend. So that was a pretty good sign of where things were going. And had a good official visit, and then didn't take long on Monday afternoon for him to flip his commitment. But a guy at Westside High School who he's a winner. I mean, he's won state championship this past season. Threw for 4,000 yards and also got nearly 4,000 yards and also got it done with his on the ground too. So, and I think he was coming off his sophomore year, where he threw for almost 3,000 yards. So just a guy who, another in-state guy who seems like has some potential and could be a guy who, for that quarterback room is just another good recruit that Dow Loggins has added.
Yeah, and watching Cutter, unfortunately, he did defeat my South Lawrence Bruins last year in the state championship, and I know Coach Lane is a good friend of JC's, and probably not ideal for my alma mater, but at the same time, I was very impressed with him in that game. That was the only time I watched Cutter Woods play live, but I was very impressed with him at the 7-on-7. You can tell he's a leader of his team, and he can make all the throws. I mean, we saw that in person, and I think that he's one of those kids that 7-on-7, he's clearly going to shine because he can make quick decisions, quick reads, all of that. And a lot of times, in 7-on-7 especially, you're seeing different things there, where it's not necessarily that every defensive back or every secondary guy is elite. I mean, you're still talking about kids that might be a sophomore, junior, or a senior in high school, but you have 4 seconds in 7-on-7 to make a pass, to attempt a pass. And Cutter did a really good job with that. I don't think he took a single sack. Really quick, we're going to get to Tayshawn Alston. He is the latest commitment of the night, but I wanted to have a quick conversation here with Alex, and I'm just going to talk for a little bit about kicker Max Kelly and long snapper Kyle Farrow committing to South Carolina. Look, I'm a big proponent that you need a quality kicker, not just in the SEC, but in college football. And so many games are won and lost with a kicker. I mean, you go to the NFL, it's one of the most important positions. And while they're not paid that way, they are counted on that way to go make the clutch kicks. And Max Kelly seems to be a kid that's been very accurate from point after attempts, which you might say, hey, it's high school, you should make all of them. And sometimes there's a weird snap, there's something goes wrong, and it's really not the kicker's fault there. But a long snapper is critically important just for that reason. Like, where is the snap? How is the snap getting down? How big is the kid? And with Kyle Farrow, he's 6'2", 225 pounds, 6'3", 225 pounds. Just a really, really big kid. And that matters when you have a 6'4" defensive tackle on either side of you that are rushing you and trying to distract you as you're making that snap. So I think that there's a lot of NFL tendencies that are coming through here. And special teams in South Carolina has always been important. So I don't see a reason for there was a lot of anger or questioning why South Carolina took a kicker and a long snapper in the same week. But that position is just, it's so important on a football field. And if you get the right one and you get somebody for 3 to 4 years, and in those positions, you're really looking at 4-year players, it's something that I think is important. I think that the coaching staff realizes that games can be won and lost with the snap. Games can be won and lost on a field goal. But y'all, we're going to take a quick time out here. We got to get a word in from our sponsor. Someone's got to pay for Phil's vacation to Washington, D.C. with his family. So we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. When I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia. Yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. Quality that is guaranteed.
And we are back. For those of you that are watching this live and are in the chat box, unfortunately, Gamecocks just had a decommitment from Landon Duckworth. Landon Duckworth is a 2026 quarterback, a 4-star kid, ranked 95th overall in the 2026 class from Jackson, Alabama, and 119th overall in the 24/7 composite. Landon Duckworth committed to South Carolina on August 5th, 2023. It was a kid that kind of came out of the blue for the Gamecock coaching staff, and it's also a kid that you're not going to say no to. I know that Landon Duckworth had a really good relationship with South Carolina. If I had more details, I would give it to you right now, but I don't. And Alex actually had to drop off the show so he would be able to, make some phone calls, shoot some text messages out, and then do a write-up for the bigspur.com. So if you're not a member of the bigspur.com, although it's unfortunate news, it is a great time to go ahead and hop on, start your subscription, and you'll be right there for all of the breaking news that happens over the summer and into the football season. The bigspur.com is always running specials where you can get an entire year for like $79.99 or something like that, or you can get discounts on monthly pricing. So the news of the hour, the news of right now, is that Landon Duckworth has decommitted from South Carolina. I don't know if that means the Gamecocks are out of it. He was a kid that has visited this summer, visited for a couple of home games last season. I don't think this has anything to do with Cutter Woods committing to South Carolina. It could be a situation where other coaching staffs are pointing out to Landon that South Carolina just took a commitment from a kid a class ahead of him. I don't know. When it comes to this type of thing, what coaches say and what coaches, tell recruits, and, their mindsets change. We all remember when we were 16, 17, 18 years old and the decisions that we made or did not make. I do know that Auburn was sniffing around Landon Duckworth. I don't know if Alabama is, but if he wants to go to Alabama or Auburn, it's the same type of situation where Gamecock fans want South Carolina kids to stay home. So we'll see what happens with Landon Duckworth. We'll definitely be tracking that on the Big Spur and then on this show as well. And once we get more information, we will give it to you. So Alex had to step away. He's going to try and be back before the end of the show. But in other news for South Carolina did pick up a commitment today from linebacker defensive end Tayshawn Alston out of North Carolina. He's a hybrid kind of guy, probably going to play defensive end, I would think, at South Carolina. Could grow into defensive tackle. It's really difficult to see like how big and strong these kids are going to get, and when their body fills out and when they mature, exactly which direction it will go. But South Carolina desperately needed to get back in North Carolina. They have done that with two commitments in Tayshawn Alston and then Brian Rowe, a 4-star wide receiver out of Concord, North Carolina. So Gamecocks are finding their way back into North Carolina. North Carolina is a very difficult state to recruit. Either you grow up wanting to go to North Carolina, or you want to go to what is kind of considered a blue blood. But we all remember Melvin Ingram, Travian Robertson, Chris Culliver, Wesley Saunders, Jason Barnes, a lot of those guys that came from North Carolina and were very successful for South Carolina. And it's never a bad thing to get back in the state. I will remind everybody that right now, if you look at it, South Carolina currently has as of Tayshawn Alston's commitment, the Gamecocks were ranked, I think, 18th or 17th in the country in recruiting. So Gamecocks are, despite all the 3 stars that a lot of people want to get angry about, and despite, having a kicker that has 0 stars attached to his name, Gamecocks still have a top 20 recruiting class in the country right now, which is nothing to sneeze at. Gamecocks currently sit at, where is it? I think it's about like 197.97 points in the 24/7 composite team ratings. They would need to get up to around 230-ish points to continue to have a top 20 recruiting class. And it's just unfortunate that, when you play in the SEC, you can have a top 20 recruiting class in the country and it still might be 8th or 9th best in the conference. The big news right now is that South Carolina is committing or getting commitments at a high level. I think 4 or 5 over the last couple of weeks. I think there are going to be more coming through the pipeline. And the other big news is that Landon Duckworth has decommitted from South Carolina, according to reports. When you look at this Gamecock recruiting class right now, Gamecocks have 16 commitments. I think the Gamecocks are probably going to take 7 to 10 more high school players and then probably focus on the portal. So with 16 commitments right now, and I'm using 16 because for some reason the long snapper is not a part of the recruiting class on 24/7 Sports and thebigspur.com. I believe he has a scholarship, but I'm not 100% sure. So somewhere in the range of 16 to 17 commitments. I think the Gamecocks will probably take maximum 26, 27 guys. It all just kind of depends on where the Gamecocks think that they might lose position players to the portal. But looking at quarterback, the Gamecocks have 1 quarterback, and that is Cutter Woods, committed right now. I do think the Gamecocks are done at that position recruiting this cycle. And I think Cutter Woods is the perfect type of player to get for South Carolina. He's going to be developmental. Like, you just had a 4-star kid in Dante Reno commit last year. Obviously, you have Lenore Sellers there, who everybody has high hopes for. He's got at least 2 more years. And then Robbie Ashford has this year and another year. So Gamecocks are probably okay at quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if they take a portal quarterback, but I think they're done in the recruiting class right now. Gamecocks have 0 running backs committed, and right now looking at it, they're going to have to take at least 1 to 2, maybe even 3 running backs this cycle. Gamecocks only have Jerron Howell and Matthew Fuller coming back next year. Don't quote me on that, but I think there's only 2 running backs that are coming back next year. You need to have 4 or 5 or 6 running backs on your roster. So I would imagine the Gamecocks would take at least 1 running back and maybe looking at the portal to get a 2nd and 3rd running back. But it's a lot different this year than it was in the past. In the past, you really only had like 3 to 4 running backs the Gamecocks heavily pursued from the recruiting ranks. And this year, Coach Blackwell has, I counted up today, I think it's like 15 to 18 offers out for running backs, but I don't really know what's materializing at this moment in time. But yeah, the Gamecocks will probably take 1 to 2 running backs from the high school ranks. Wide receiver, the Gamecocks have 2 committed. 4-star Brian Rowe, very athletic kid, reminds me a lot of Shaq Rowland. For those of you that remember Shaq when he came out, big, tall, crazy athlete. Probably a little skinny right now, but I don't think he's going to have any issue putting on weight. And, you want to be careful with how much weight you put on when he has the athleticism that Brian Rowe has. And then you have Jaden Sellers. Jaden Sellers is Lenore Sellers' younger brother. He's a 3-star right now. He's ranked as an 89, so he's very, very close to a 4-star. And he has the benefit that a lot of other wide receivers don't have. They're coming out of high school, and the fact that his older brother, who he's been catching passes from his entire life, is a freak athlete and a freak quarterback himself. And I know, talking to the South Florence head football coach, he said that, with Lenoris, it was very difficult, Lenoris' junior year, in practice, because kids just weren't used to the ball coming out of his hands that fast. And Jaden never had that problem. Jaden's also a really, really fast kid, very athletic. He's recovering from injury. I think he's going to be pretty good. Gamecocks are probably going to take at least one more wide receiver, maybe two. I think all the focus right now is on Malik Clark, wide receiver from upstate South Carolina. Another kid that's blazing fast, has some height to him, can catch the ball, 4-star kid. I think they're probably battling North Carolina for him. But I know the Gamecocks are going to run the race there, and I do believe that Malik Clark is the number one wide receiver left on their board. Then you have Lex Cyrus from Pennsylvania, another 4-star kid, probably a South Carolina Penn State battle right now. And I think he has a lot of things to like about South Carolina. It just comes down to, playing for your home state school, and if he's ready to leave Pennsylvania. But I know a lot of people that went to school in South Carolina that were from Pennsylvania and never wanted to go back. So Lex Cyrus did take an official visit, had a great official visit, and we'll see what happens there. At tight end, the Gamecocks do have one committed. That's Preston Douglas. And, honestly, he is a kid that the Gamecock coaching staff is pretty excited about. He's more of a Hayden Hurst tight end than a, blocking tight end. So I think the Gamecocks are probably looking for maybe one more tight end. It kind of is a big room there. So they got a lot of players there with some eligibility left. So Mike Tyler out of Columbia is a kid that I'm looking at tight end. Mikael Skinner is the really interesting one to me. He's a 4-star. He's committed to Cincinnati. He's come to South Carolina team camp with his team and done 7-on-7 twice. Did not leave with an offer either time. I watched Mikael Skinner play once. I think he's a really good football player. And I think that the question is, for me, can he be a wide receiver, or is he a tight end? He's not really a jumbo-sized athlete. To me, he looks like a wide receiver. And, to be a wide receiver, you got to be faster than he is. So we'll see what happens with Mikael. But I know the Gamecocks are not done kicking the tires there. Gamecocks do have one offensive lineman commitment. Shed Surratt, we talked about him earlier, 4-star offensive tackle out of Gaffney. Really good-looking prospect, just another 4-star offensive lineman for the Gamecocks. The big name out there is offensive tackle David Sanders. He's a top 2, top 3 kid overall in his class, not just at offensive tackle. I don't think that the Gamecocks are going to be the choice for David Sanders. I don't really have a feel for where he will go, but I know that NIL is very important to David Sanders and his family, and I just don't know if the Gamecocks will be able to get there from a money standpoint this go-around. Offensive tackle Jalen Gilchrist is a kid from up north. I think the Gamecocks have a really good shot with. He's been to South Carolina probably more than he's been to any other school. Another 4-star offensive tackle type prospect, maybe an offensive guard long term, but I feel like the Gamecocks have a good chance there. Offensive tackle Juan Gaston and then Isaac Sewells Jr. are 2 other kids to keep an eye on. The Gamecocks have taken some big offensive line classes here in the past, but they're never going to turn down offensive line. They're never going to turn down defensive linemen. So I think that you can probably realistically think the Gamecocks will get at least 2 of those offensive tackles we just talked about. Defensive end, the big one right now is Jared Smith. He's 19th in the country according to 24/7 Sports. He's a rangy, athletic defensive end that can disrupt the quarterback, disrupt plays, can get after it. I think the Gamecocks feel really, really good about where they are right now. So I would keep an eye on Jared Smith. I don't know if a commitment date is imminent. I don't know if he's set one yet, but I know that coming off the official visit and, some things behind the scenes, the Gamecocks, feel pretty good about him. Bryce Davis. Alex had a really good article to Bryce Davis. He's another top 70 overall player in the country. Defensive end, maybe grows into defensive tackle. He's a 4-star. I believe he's down to Duke, South Carolina, Clemson, and Georgia. I think that South Carolina has a good shot here too. I was surprised. He had a top 3 that did not include South Carolina. Ended up putting South Carolina into his top 4 after his official visit, and just don't ever count Sterling Lucas out when it comes to a defensive lineman or any recruit for that matter. But Sterling Lucas is really good on the recruiting trail. You have defensive end Donovan Darden. He is from Havelock, North Carolina. I saw this kid in person. He looks the part. 6'6", 230 pounds. Looks athletic as all get out. I know he had a pretty good official visit this past weekend. The Gamecocks will take him if he wants to come, and I think that he would be a good player there. And then Xavion Hardy. You all remember Xavion Hardy. He was committed to the Gamecocks 2 years ago. I looked on 24/7 Sports today, and I think 24/7 Sports or the composite has him ranked as the #1 overall player in JUCO. Just another disruptive defensive end who would come to South Carolina with 3 years to play 2. I believe is what he would have. And I think South Carolina and Ole Miss, Mississippi State, all those teams are in it, but I think the South Carolina is probably where his heart is. So as long as the Gamecocks are willing to bring him back in the fold, and I think they are, I feel good about Xavion Hardy. I don't know about linebacker, honestly. They got, one committed, and what's the kid's name? Let me pull it up. AJ Holloway, who the coaching staff really, really likes. I think that there are a number of defensive ends, hybrids that could play linebacker. Jaquel Holman, who the coaching staff really likes. He committed after a 7-on-7 camp a few weeks ago, or team camp. That kid can play anywhere. I think he'd be a heck of a linebacker. And the Gamecocks really do like Wendell Gregory and the other kid they brought in from Virginia last year at linebacker. I think the Gamecocks are set up pretty nicely at linebacker, and you can always attack that in the portal. There's always portal linebackers available. Defensive back, Jonte Gilbert. We've talked about Jonte on this show for probably a year now. Decommitted from Ohio State about a year ago, and was very, very close to committing to South Carolina. He has a really weird top 5. I think the Gamecocks would still take him. I don't know if that he's at the top of their board or anything like that, but I think Jonte Gilbert's still in play. Onis Konabani out of Heathwood, I believe he's at. I think he's at Heathwood. Yeah, he was at 7-on-7. He looked good, and he also came back for an unofficial visit 2 days later to South Carolina and was hanging out with a lot of the coaches and the staffers, and I think he's a priority. And then you have Laganza Hayward, was an official visitor a few weeks back. He had a really good official visit. It's just, South Carolina going to have staying power with him after I think he's visited Florida and Tennessee here recently. And then Kendall Daniels Jr. is a kid that we've talked about a lot in the secondary. Kendall Daniels is a kid that a lot of people thought was a welcome home a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago. He was on an official visit this past weekend. And I think he had another good trip. Gamecocks have staying power with him, and they're right there with it. So that's kind of a rundown. I think that the Gamecocks have 16, 17 commitments now. I think they'll take 7 to 10 more. And all of those names that I just mentioned are names that I think Gamecock fans would be pretty excited about. So Alex Jones has come back into the show. Alex, we were just talking about taking a break, and we were just talking about how nice it would be to relax in the dead period. And very interesting that the dead period started today, and Landon Duckworth has now decommitted. What's your take on that, Alex?
Yeah, just recruiting never stops. But I think he's one of those guys who he's highly recruited, had been committed since like August of 2023, was the first commit for South Carolina, the 2026 class. So it's always going to be about holding on to him because he's such a highly recruited guy. And, we'll just have to find out more about what all happened and what went down here.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for the Gamecock coaches. It's tough for fans who, pay attention and care about this. And look, if you're watching this show right now, you clearly care about Gamecock sports and Gamecock recruiting. For those of you who don't know, and I should have touched on this earlier, I believe the dead period started today or yesterday. So it's going to be, I'm just going to be very blunt. The dead period lasts for X amount of time, And, college coaches don't have the access and the ability to communicate with players like they do during a non-dead period. So I don't think that it's odd timing for a decommitment of this magnitude. And look, I don't think the Gamecocks are going to stop, talking to Landon. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, and they actually just offered a 2026 quarterback too. Trying to pull
can you release the name?
Yeah, he put it up on Twitter. Noah Grubbs, 2026 Notre Dame commitment, 4-star. He announced about 13 minutes ago that South Carolina had offered.
So you got a 2026 Notre Dame commitment who plays quarterback. You have Landon Duckworth, a 2026 South Carolina former commitment, and all within 15 minutes, you see what just happened with South Carolina losing a commitment and offering another kid who's sounds like probably highly recruited as well, being a Notre Dame commitment in 2026. And look, like I said, Alex, while you were gone, I don't think this has anything to do with Cutter Woods and being scared of competition. I think this is an Alabama kid who I know that Auburn have been sniffing around Landon Duckworth a little bit, have been in his ear. I don't know if Alabama has been. I know that immediately everyone's going to say, well, Alabama offered, he's going to Alabama. Maybe.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you're not a member of the BigSpur.com, now is the perfect time to join up. So yeah, Alex, I went through the recent commitments, kind of talked about Surratt, Woods, Alston, Farrow, and Kelly. Before we get out of here tonight, I know you're a busy man. Your phone's gonna be blowing up, so we'll try and keep it short here. But just official visit recap. Is there anybody that you specifically want to talk about that was on campus this past weekend? And I think the big one that a lot of people are probably interested in is Bryce Davis. You had a really cool article where Gamecock fans would be happy about on the Big Spur, but I'll just let you take it from here, man.
Yeah, I think Bryce Davis was probably the headlining guy this weekend that was in. And with him, kind of rewinded a bit, South Carolina wasn't in his top 3. And then when he released, I think it may have been maybe a month or so ago. And, he said Sterling Lucas just stayed on him and continued to recruit him. And that's why he decided to go ahead and make an official visit. And, he said South Carolina's kind of cracked into this top school list now. I'm not sure where exactly they stand in that, but, it sounds like for him, they gave him a lot to think about this weekend. And he, obviously in his dead period, and he's got a commitment date, I think it's July 20th. So we'll see where kind of the things stand with him, but just another guy that Sterling Lucas has, continued to show just how good of a recruiter he is.
Yeah, and I said this earlier. I never am going to count Sterling Lucas out of any recruitment at any point. Not at all. So Kendall Daniels is a kid that gets a lot of talk on the Big Spur. Kind of touched on him a little bit earlier ago. A lot of South Carolina fans kind of felt like he was probably going to be a commitment at some point. Has not committed to South Carolina, but at the end of the day, it's always good to get a kid who likes you and comes back for an official visit. And, I think it might have been you, Alex, but official visits don't suck. They're usually pretty fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you rarely get a bad report off an official visit, but with Kendall Daniels specifically, I think South Carolina's been in a good spot for a long time and for a while now, and I think that continued into the official visit. And he hasn't set a date for a commitment, but he did say it was going to be soon. So we'll have to see. I think some schools you would think about with him or just like that. I know you think about Virginia Tech with him and some other schools, but I think South Carolina is in a pretty good spot for Kendall Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy I really want to touch on really quick, and no disrespect to the other guys that were on official visits. I'm sure there will be articles written by Alex or Tony or JC or John on the Big Spur later on. But Xavion Hardy was a kid that I really liked out of high school. Obviously, he didn't get the grades to be admitted to South Carolina in the recruiting class. Gamecocks did place him in junior college, and when I just looked at it, it said he was the number 1 player in the country in JUCO. You think the Gamecocks have staying power and can potentially get him back in the boat long term?
Yeah, I think so. With him and when he was in that 2023 class and when he had to go to JUCO, he kind of said, I still like South Carolina and would like to come back. It seemed like South Carolina's still in a good spot there. And, it's kind of crazy with him. Like at East Mississippi, he's kind of blown up a little bit and played really well and has gotten offers from, I think it's like Alabama. I know he officially visited Mississippi State. So he's got a lot of schools coming after him. But I think South Carolina's in a good spot for him, and that'll be good to, especially a number one JUCO defensive lineman guy in the country. Like, you're never gonna have too many of those guys.
Yeah, and look, I see some comments in here. Is our DT coach ever going to recruit anyone? He's working really hard, man. It's a tough market, and Jay Diz, I love you to death, man, but it's tough right now. Everyone's looking for defensive ends. Everyone's looking for defensive tackles, and Travian, I think, has barely been on staff for 365 calendar days. And I talk about on this show, and I talk about on other shows, what is most important in a lot of these recruitments is not necessarily the last 365 days in a recruitment. It's the 365 days of that kid's sophomore year, that junior year, getting them on campus, getting them around the program, spending time with them, unofficial visits, camp visits, everything that's happening right now. Travian just really has not had the opportunity to fully immerse himself in these kids in a way that a lot of other coaching staffs around the country have. I have zero doubts that Travian Robertson is going to be a really good recruiter at South Carolina in time. He's the kind of guy, too, that if he doesn't agree with a player's mindset, they're going to be off his board. He's looking for a certain type of player and someone that's willing to work, and not saying that any of these kids that he's quote unquote missed out on is going to not be a great worker or something like that, or not have Travian's mindset. But I'm not that worried about the position. I think that is a position that you can go to the transfer portal to go find some guys. And South Carolina just did that last year. I think how many defensive tackles they bring in the transfer portal? I know at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, DeAndre Jules.
Yeah, from Pitt.
Gosh, I'm blanking right now. I can't remember.
No, it's not a big deal. I mean, more what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of players that might be playing at a lower level or playing for not an SEC school that are starters that want that opportunity. There's going to be players that are freshmen, sophomore that are buried on a depth chart, not because they suck, but because there's really good players in front of them. I mean, I always go back to the Alabama wide receiver room at one point, where a kid transferred to Ohio State and was a top 10 pick, and the guys in front of him were top 10 picks too. So what are you supposed to do? But no, I think that South Carolina's going to be okay there. They definitely need some numbers, though. They need to find some kids in the transfer portal or recruiting ranks, and they need to find them soon. So I'm not trying to gloss over the glaring need that's going to be in the next year or two along the defensive front, because that's a real thing. But
yeah,
I would just encourage everybody to remember, despite the Landon Duckworth news tonight, nobody wanted to see it. It kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, there's so much time in the 2026 class, and the state of South Carolina in 26 and 27 is loaded. And if you can find some kids from your home state, that usually is a good route to go. Jay Diz, I agree with you. Alex, you'll get a kick out of this. I don't know if you're looking in the chat box, but Jay Diz says UGA should have a couple to spare this next year. Yeah, they took everybody South Carolina wanted last year.
The amount of defensive linemen they
for all of them
is crazy. It's unreal how many defensive linemen they get.
I mean, I think I saw something today that they had, I think it was 15 of the top 20 defensive linemen in the country with crystal balls to them. Like, you can't take 15.
No. Yeah, so that's it's just wild.
But anyway, I appreciate the time, Alex. I know that it's always difficult when these types of things happen. You're going to be on the board until midnight, because at 1 a.m. someone's going to start a post that's going to say Landon Duckworth decommitted. What the H is going on here? So I know that's not going to be a fun night for you. If I could help you with it, I would. Make me a moderator, and I'll stay up tonight and help you out. But no, we appreciate everyone listening tonight. Whether you get this in podcast form, you watch it live on YouTube, or however you get this show, maybe you're watching on Twitter. We appreciate it so much. And when y'all spend this amount of time with us, it's the most valuable thing you have. You can't get more time back, so we'll always value that. So thank you so much. Just another quick reminder: we will not be here the next 2 Tuesdays. Going to take a little bit of a hiatus. Hopefully the world doesn't come crashing down in between. Hopefully Gamecocks don't get any more decommitments or anything like that happens in this 2-week break. But we'll be back with bells on. We'll be excited to be here with y'all. And Alex, you got any parting words for the folks?
Yeah, I think South Carolina they've gotten some commitments here, and they've gotten on a roll in this 2025 class. So, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but some of these guys, you can see their rankings rise here towards if they have strong senior seasons. So, I think South Carolina's just fine in recruiting wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, we appreciate it, everyone. We hope you have a fantastic next 2 weeks, and we will see y'all when we see you. But have a great night, everyone. Appreciate you. Bye, everyone. Bye.